You think you can change anything? Ashbourne shouted, his voice cutting through the silence of the mansion like a whip. Lucas kicked over a vase, sending shards across the marble floor. Lucia stood there, grinning, the anger in her eyes sharper than ever. "Do something, Dad, or don't. We don't care," she spat, her voice dripping with defiance. Nyla Thompson stood frozen in the doorway, watching it all. The pristine walls of the Ashbourne estate, cold and immaculate, didn't seem to offer any protection against the chaos unraveling inside. She felt the weight of their eyes. No one had lasted more than a few hours here. But Nyla wasn't like the others. Not anymore. These kids weren't evil, they were broken. She could see it. The smell of fresh flowers and expensive leather filled the air, but it couldn't mask the tension. Not today. The house could crumble around her, and she still wouldn't flinch. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends, and to everyone watching for the very first time. You are truly welcome here. I'm so happy to have you with us today. I've missed you all so much. It's been a tough ride with some technical issues, but by God's grace, everything is coming back together. Thank you to my returning family for standing by me, and to our new viewers, thank you for choosing to spend your time here. Your presence means more than you know. Before we begin, I want to say a short prayer over everyone watching, especially the women. To the women, may God strengthen you, comfort you, and fill your hearts with peace and favor. To the men, may God guide you, bless your efforts, and grant you wisdom in all that you do. And may God's protection rest upon every single one of you. Amen. If you're new here, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join this growing family. And for everyone watching, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. My USA and UK family, I see you. Please make sure you watch till the very end, because tomorrow I'll be dropping another powerful story you wouldn't want to miss. Now, let's get into today's story. The silence broke again as Ashbourne stormed past Nyla, furious, his footsteps echoing like thunder. Nyla didn't move, just stood there, eyes locked on the twins. She had fought for her own survival too many times not to know that there was something else lurking behind this rage. And she wasn't going anywhere. The twins, Lucas and Lucia, stood frozen in place, staring at her as if they hadn't even noticed she was still there. The room, a pristine monument to wealth and power, felt suffocating. She could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning and the soft tick of a distant clock. But it felt like she was the only one in the mansion who wasn't holding her breath. Ashbourne's voice echoed down the hallway, distant and barely audible now, but still full of fire. He was yelling at someone, likely one of the staff, but Nyla didn't focus on his words. She wasn't here for him. Not right now. She was here for them. Lucas, the older twin by 5 minutes, glared at her, his cold eyes like shards of glass. Lucia, her lips twisted into a sneer, crossed her arms defiantly. Nyla remained still, letting the silence stretch. The air in the room was thick with the weight of their expectations. Their expectations that she would break just like the others. But Nyla wasn't like them. She'd survived things far worse than this. Without a word, Nyla walked slowly toward the couch and sat down, a calculated move that gave them space. She didn't flinch, didn't flounder, just sat there. "Why are you still here?" Lucas finally asked, his voice sharp and accusing. Lucia snorted. "You're just another one of them, aren't you? Another maid who thinks she can fix us." Her voice dripped with mockery, but Nyla saw the cracks beneath it. They were testing her, pushing her, boundaries, seeing if she'd run like the others. "I'm not here to fix you," Nyla said softly, her voice calm but firm. "I'm here because I know what it feels like to hurt." She held their gazes one by one. "I know what it feels like when the world turns its back on you. When people expect you to break, but you don't. And when you don't, you find a way to make it through." The twins' eyes flickered, a flash of something unspoken crossing between them. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but Nyla caught it. She had them right where she wanted them. Later that evening, Nyla made her way through the halls of the estate, passing the cold, gleaming furniture and the meticulously arranged artwork. It was all beautiful, yes, but something about it felt empty. She could see it in the faces of the staff members who passed by, expressions that flickered with a mix of pity and judgment. They'd all heard the stories. The twins were monsters. Their tantrums and cruelty had driven away nannies, cleaners, and caretakers in droves. And here Nyla was, still standing. At first, they didn't speak to her directly, but the whispers were impossible to ignore. "You know, she's not going to last a day," one of the housekeepers murmured under her breath, her eyes flicking nervously toward Nyla. Another staff member nodded in agreement. "I give her till the end of the week. The twins, they've broken everyone else. No one survives them." Nyla kept walking, her stride steady. She didn't stop, didn't even blink. The voices of doubt followed her down the hall, but she refused to let them penetrate. She'd been through too much to let the cynicism of others pull her down. The kitchen staff gave her a wide berth when she entered, and the awkward silence that greeted her made it clear they'd already made their judgment. None of them believed she could handle the twins. After all, no one had. But Nyla wasn't like the others, and she knew that. Later that night, after the staff had all retreated to their quarters and the house fell into an uneasy calm, Nyla sat alone in the small room assigned to her. The walls were bare, the furnishings sparse. But it was enough. She wasn't here for luxury. She was here to make a difference, even if it meant facing the impossible. As she sat in the quiet, the weight of the day hit her. She thought of her childhood in South Los Angeles, a place where survival wasn't just a matter of making it through the day, but making it through the pain. Losing family members, fighting for what she could get, never knowing if tomorrow would be the day things got better or worse. She'd lived in a world where expectations were low, and people like her were often discarded, just another face in a crowd, expected to fail. But Nyla wasn't that person anymore. She thought about the twins. Lucas, his cold, detached stare, always on the defense. Lucia, her biting words and sharp tongue, deities doesn't beat one, always hiding behind walls she couldn't break down. Nyla saw through it. She saw the grief, the anger. They were just kids acting out in ways no one could understand because no one had bothered to see the root of their pain. No, these weren't just rebellious children. These were kids lost in grief, their world torn apart, and no one had been there to help them pick up the pieces. That was why she took this job. Not because it was glamorous, not because it was easy. She could have stayed in Los Angeles, worked with children who didn't have the luxury of wealth but had something far more valuable, hope. But she wasn't here to give up. She wasn't here to run. She was here to fight for them, even if no one else would. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. But I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show her that these tales matter. The quiet of the mansion felt heavy, but Nyla's resolve was unshaken. She could already hear the doubt in the whispers of the staff, the cold expectations from Ashbourne, the warnings that she was another failure waiting to happen. But they didn't know her. They didn't know what it was like to be counted out. She'd been counted out all her life. She wasn't about to let these kids go through the same thing. She rose from the chair, eyes hardening with determination. Tomorrow would be a new day, and she wouldn't back down. She wasn't just another maid in the Ashbourne household. She was the one who was going to change things. For them, for him, and for herself. Tomorrow she would face them again, and she would not fail. The kitchen was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Nyla was prepping for dinner when the crash echoed through the house. She rushed into the kitchen, only to find Lucas and Lucia standing in the midst of broken china, their grins wide with mischief. Lucas was the first to notice her. His eyes narrowed, but his smirk didn't fade. He kicked a plate off the counter, watching it shatter on the floor, and then turned to Lucia with a mock bow. "Another one bites the dust," he said, his voice dripping with sarcastic triumph. Lucia's laughter rang out, shrill and cutting. "Perfect," she said, twirling a shattered plate in her fingers like it was some sort of trophy. "Mom always loved these." Nyla froze for a moment. The comment struck her, and for the briefest second, she saw the cracks in their facades, the raw pain they had buried so deep. She could almost hear the words unsaid. "We don't care anymore." Ashbourne appeared in the doorway, his face reddening with anger. But when he saw the mess, he only sighed, his eyes darting from one twin to the other. "Don't do this again," he muttered, a tone of frustration in his voice. But that was all. He didn't lift a finger to stop them. He never did. Nyla stepped forward, her voice steady and calm. "Is this really what you want? To break everything around you?" She dropped to one knee, reaching for the shards without anger. "It's just stuff. But you don't have to hurt it to feel better." The twins paused, their usual defenses slipping for the briefest moment. Nyla's calmness was different. It wasn't a reprimand or an attempt to control, just an invitation to stop the madness. She kept her voice gentle but firm. "I'm not going anywhere. But if you're trying to push me out, it won't work. Not this time." Nyla stood, wiping her hands on her apron. They were still watching her, but something was shifting. The silence that hung between them wasn't as heavy as before. As she looked at the twins, a memory from her own childhood resurfaced. She had been angry, too. Angry at the world, at the cards she'd been dealt. The hurt, the frustration, she recognized it in them. And despite their cruelty, she knew they weren't evil. They were just broken. "I know you're hurting," she whispered, almost to herself. "But I'm not going anywhere." She wasn't giving up. Not on them. Not on herself. The playroom was a mess. Toys scattered across the floor, art supplies strewn about, and an overwhelming sense of chaos that seemed to reflect the twins' inner turmoil. As Nyla swept up the scattered blocks, her hand brushed against something hard beneath a pile of stuffed animals. Curiously, she pulled out a small photo album, its cover worn from years of use. She opened it slowly, the pages revealing a different side of the twins, smiling, laughing, happy. A young woman in the photos, radiating warmth and joy, was clearly their mother. Nyla's heart tightened. There was a softness in these pictures, a light that seemed absent in the twins' faces now. The sound of voices from the hallway caught her attention. She paused, listening. "I've tried everything." Ashbourne's voice was low, filled with frustration. 18 doctors, countless treatments. Nothing worked. Another voice, one of the staff members, responded sympathetically. "It's hard, Mr. Ashbourne. The kids, they're hurting. They lost their mother." Nyla's breath caught in her throat. Their mother. The woman in the pictures, the one who had clearly been their world. The conversation continued, but Nyla's mind was already reeling. She knew the twins' behavior was more than just mischief, but hearing the truth, the raw grief that had been left untended, made her realize just how deep their pain ran. They weren't bad. They were broken, and it wasn't their fault. As the conversation faded, Nyla set the photo album down gently. She wiped her hands on her apron and took a deep breath, looking at the twins' empty playroom with a new understanding. She wasn't going to fix them, but she could show them that it was okay to hurt, that it was okay to need help. She would be that person for them, the one who wouldn't walk away. And somehow, that small act of kindness, of just being there, might be the only thing that could begin to heal them. Nyla had been at the estate for over 2 weeks now, and while the twins had yet to open up fully, the silence between them wasn't as oppressive. There were moments, brief, fleeting moments, when Lucas and Lucia would engage with her. They didn't throw tantrums as often, and their insults were less sharp. But the change, if it could be called that, was slow. She wasn't expecting miracles. Still, something was happening. The house, once a fortress of indifference, felt a little less cold. But not everyone was on board with Nyla's methods. The staff had started to whisper more openly now. "You see what she's doing, right?" One of the housekeepers asked another, her voice hushed. "She lets them get away with everything. That's not how things are done here. She thinks she's some sort of therapist," another staff member muttered, eyeing Nyla as she walked by. "Ashbourne won't stand for this for long." The whispers were like daggers, all aimed at her, questioning her every move. But the worst came from Ashbourne himself. "Enough of this," Ashbourne snapped, catching her alone in the hallway one afternoon. His eyes were dark with frustration. "I didn't hire you to coddle them, Nyla. I hired you to manage them, discipline them. We've been through this." His voice dropped to a low growl. "If you don't start doing things the way we've done them before, I'll have no choice but to let you go. This isn't a charity." Nyla stood her ground, meeting his gaze with a calm that surprised even her. "I'm not here to manage them, Ashbourne. I'm here to help them heal." His gaze hardened. "Then maybe you're not cut out for this job. Do you think Nyla will give up? Or will she keep fighting for those kids who need her the most? If you believe in stories like hers, then subscribe and stand with those who don't give up, no matter the odds." The storm hit the mansion like a tidal wave. It started with a broken vase, a small act of defiance from Lucas, and quickly escalated into a full-scale rampage. Lucia knocked over a table, sending crystal glasses shattering across the marble floor. The twins' laughter rang out, a cruel and manic sound that filled the space with chaos. Nyla rushed into the room just as Lucas grabbed an antique sculpture, a priceless family heirloom, and threw it to the ground. The delicate porcelain shattered into a million pieces. Nyla's heart sank, but she didn't react. She couldn't. The twins were drowning in grief, and they needed something far more than a punishment. Ashbourne appeared in the doorway, his face contorted in rage. "This is unacceptable, Nyla," he shouted, his voice thick with fury. "Do something about this, now!" But Nyla didn't flinch. She didn't move to reprimand them, didn't raise her voice. Instead, she dropped to her knees among the broken pieces of the sculpture, her gaze soft but unwavering. Lucia, she said gently, her voice calm. "I know you're hurting. I see it, but breaking things won't fix it. So let's stop. Just for a moment, okay?" They stood frozen, their anger faltering for the first time since Nyla had arrived. She didn't tell them they were wrong, didn't try to control them. Instead, she asked, "Tell me about your mother. What did she like? What did you miss the most about her?" Lucas, his hands still trembling, met her eyes for the first time in days. Lucia's sneer softened, replaced by a flicker of vulnerability. Ashbourne stood at a distance, his frustration evident. But as he watched Nyla with the twins, something in him shifted. He didn't understand it, but he felt the weight of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Hope. It was late afternoon when Nyla heard voices echoing from the study. She had been cleaning the hallway outside Ashbourne's office when she paused, recognizing the tone of the conversation. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the words came to her, cutting through the silence of the mansion. "You know how much I've spent." Ashbourne's voice was raw, a mixture of anger and resignation. "I've thrown money at every possible solution. Doctors, specialists, treatments. Nothing worked. She's gone, and nothing will bring her back." Nyla pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding. She had never heard Ashbourne speak like this. The stoic billionaire, the man who had been so distant from his children, was unraveling in front of someone. The other voice, his lawyer, she guessed, was softer, more measured. "You did everything you could, sir," the lawyer replied, though his voice was tinged with an uncomfortable sympathy. "But you can't blame yourself. You didn't know." "I should have known," Ashbourne snapped. "I should have done more. Now my kids, they're a mess. I couldn't even save her. How am I supposed to save them?" The weight of Ashbourne's words hit Nyla like a freight train. She had always seen him as a distant, cold figure, someone consumed by business, by power, by control. But now she understood. This wasn't a man who had abandoned his family. This was a man drowning in guilt, caught between his failure to save the love of his life and his inability to save the children he had left. Nyla exhaled slowly, the pieces falling into place. She wasn't just dealing with angry, rebellious children. She was dealing with a broken family. And Ashbourne, he needed healing too. With this newfound understanding, Nyla's approach to the twins shifted. She stopped seeing them as problems to solve and started seeing them as kids who had been robbed of their chance to grieve properly. She would help them process their pain, and in doing so, perhaps, help Ashbourne find his way back to them. Her strategy wasn't about control anymore. It was about compassion, patience, and understanding. If she could show the twins how to mourn, maybe Ashbourne could learn to heal too. The shouting echoed through the halls like a storm. Ashbourne was at his breaking point, his voice cracking with frustration. "I've had enough of this, Lucas." "Lucia," he barked, pacing the living room as the twins stood there, defiant and unyielding. "I'm not doing this anymore," Lucia snapped, her eyes flashing with anger. "You can't fix us, Dad. You can't bring her back." Lucas stood next to her, his fists clenched. "Yeah, you think throwing money at us will work? It won't. We don't need a new nanny. We need her back." Nyla stood at the doorway, watching the scene unfold. It had gone too far. She could feel the intensity of the room, the suffocating tension that had built over the past few weeks. But this wasn't about control. This wasn't about authority. This was about giving them space to breathe, to feel, and to be heard. She stepped forward, her voice steady, but firm. "Stop," she said softly. "You're not alone in this. None of you are." Ashbourne faltered, his face hardening with emotion, but he didn't speak. Lucas and Lucia, too, seemed to freeze, caught off guard by her calm demeanor. "I know you're scared," Nyla continued, her voice gentle. "And I know you're angry. But this anger, it's not just about me. It's about her, your mom. You don't have to bury it anymore." The twins' eyes flickered. For the first time, their walls began to crack. Lucas, his voice barely a whisper, spoke. "We miss her so much. It hurts so much." Lucia followed, her voice breaking. "I hate that I feel like I have to be angry all the time, but I don't know how to stop." Nyla's heart ached for them, but she stayed strong, holding their gaze. "It's okay to feel that way. You don't have to hide it from me, or from anyone." Slowly but surely, the twins relaxed. For the first time, they showed their vulnerability, the sadness they had been hiding for so long. Nyla had broken through, not with force, not with discipline, but with understanding. And in that moment, something shifted. The walls they'd built around their hearts began to crumble. And Ashbourne, watching from a distance, saw it too. Nyla's presence wasn't just comforting, it was healing. The night was thick with tension, the quiet of the mansion amplifying every step. Nyla had just finished helping the twins settle into bed when she found Ashbourne standing in the study, staring out of the large glass windows. His posture was slumped, his face hidden in shadows. Nyla approached slowly, the weight of the moment pressing on her. She had seen this before, the quiet before the storm, the pain too deep to ignore. "Ashbourne?" she called, softly. He turned, his face drawn and weary. "I'm failing them, Nyla," he said, his voice breaking. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could be enough for them, but I'm not. I've been so focused on fixing everything that I've ignored what they actually need. And now they don't even trust me anymore." Tears welled in his eyes, but he wiped them away quickly, as if ashamed of the vulnerability. Nyla's heart softened. She stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not failing them," she said gently, "but you're carrying too much alone. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up for them, even when it's hard." Ashbourne's breath hitched. "I don't know how to fix this. I don't know what they need from me." "They need you to heal too," Nyla said, her voice firm but compassionate. "You've been so caught up in your own guilt that you've been emotionally absent, but it's never too late. It's okay to ask for help. Professional help. Someone who can guide you through this. For you, for them." A long pause stretched between them. Ashbourne took a shaky breath, finally nodding. "I'll do it. For them." The next day, Ashbourne sat down with Lucas and Lucia. His voice was low, filled with emotion. "I'm sorry. I've been distant. I've failed you both, and I've hurt you without realizing it. I will do better. Please forgive me." The twins, still guarded but visibly moved, nodded quietly. Nyla stood at the door, watching. The change was subtle but powerful. Slowly, piece by piece, the walls came down. The family, fractured for so long, began to heal. Together. And Nyla, the steady force behind their transformation, knew she had found something more than just a job here. She had found a family that, despite everything, still had hope. As Ashbourne embraces his role as a father, openly confronting his guilt and seeking help, the family begins to heal. The twins, no longer driven by anger, open their hearts to love again. Nyla's quiet strength taught them all that healing comes from vulnerability, compassion, and never giving up. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.